Hello and welcome to The Signal, Workplace NL's health and safety podcast. Workplace NL is the Workers' Compensation Board in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. The focus is to promote safe and healthy workplaces, provide return-to-work programs, and offer compensation to injured workers and their dependents. This series of podcasts will provide you with the latest information on how workplaces can protect the health and safety of workers. Please enjoy the show.
Good day, everyone. My name is Deanne Feltham-Scott. I'm an OSH educational consultant in prevention services. I'm joined today by my guest host, Angela Noseworthy, case manager in claim services, and Chris and Heather Denine. Chris Denine was 31 years old and working in building maintenance in 2017 when he suffered a workplace injury. Since that time, Chris has not been able to return to his pre-injury position, his pre-injury employer, or his pre-injury region. Following extensive rehabilitation, Chris participated in a labor market reentry screening and eventually a full labor market reentry assessment. Chris successfully completed retraining in the supply chain logistics program at Eastern Academy and is now employed full-time as a supply chain coordinator in St. John's. Welcome to the show today, Angela, Chris, and Heather.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hello. Happy to be here as well.
So, Chris, this is the first time that we've met face-to-face.
Yes, finally.
I know. It's a very exciting day. I know you had your injury in 2017, as Deanne has already said, but it's been a couple of years of us working together to get you to this point. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks for
Very,
being here.
very, very excited. So proud of you.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
I guess get us started. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and about your injury.
Hello, my name is Chris Denine, as you know. I'm a great outdoors person. I enjoy camping, ATVing, hiking, and whatnot. My injury is PTSD. I was diagnosed with severe PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Once I seen my doctor, I explained the situation, and he said it was the worst case of PTSD he's seen in his 30-plus years of being a physician.
Wow.
So pretty much right there and then, I had to stop completely where I was going, what I was doing, and seek the help that I needed.
You knew the severity of the injury at that point, even having seen the doctor.
Even before seeing the doctor, after the injury has happened, I went back to work, didn't feel right, spoke with one of the nurses, and he asked me if it was because of one of the situations that I did, and I said yes, and he said, go home, relax, do what you got to do. And at the time, there was only drug and addiction counselors. I had to see someone, so he was the first one that I went and go see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were home over Easter break because I had a conference to attend. So because we were in town, Chris went to see his family doctor. And when he finally saw his family doctor, he said, don't even go back. So I had to return by myself and finish up my contract before I could move home. But you didn't return once we came home in April 2017.
And I remember even just from reading the file, and because I inherited the claim as your case manager, of course, and I knew it wasn't even recommended even to go back to Labrador because even being in the community was a trigger. And I guess what brought you there in the first place was your employment, Heather. So you had to be there, and Chris had gone along with you. So, but I know even early on getting the claim, I knew the severity of it, just looking at some of the documents from doctors and having read over some of the details of some of the incidents and some of the scenes, I guess, that you had attended to, Chris.
Yes.
Just some horrific things. And in such a small community, like, you were really all of the things for all of the people that were there, right?
Yeah. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Right?
Yeah.
And without having any of the training that goes along with that.
No, my background was a heavy equipment operator at the time, and they asked if I was interested in a job there, and I said sure, why not, at the clinic at the time as maintenance, not really knowing.
Thinking you were going to be cleaning and
Yeah.
fixing a door, fixing a window.
Yeah. So it's a different atmosphere altogether when you're not trained in the specifics as to what I dealt with.
And especially when you're in such an isolated community, there was nowhere to escape to.
No.
There was nowhere to go to get away from it when on your days off.
Because you're there all the time.
You're there all the time, and it's such a small community, so the people he's dealing with while he's at work are also the people you're seeing in the grocery store and passing in the street, and there was
Constant. No reprieve.
no.
Right.
Fly in, fly out community, so it's not like we just hop in the car and drive anywhere.
No, so you're living it constantly.
Yeah.
So what were some of the supports or some of the resources or even some treatments or people that really helped you throughout this journey? Because as we've already said, it's been a long one with the ultimate goal of the reintegration back into the workplace. Just tell me a little bit about some of the supports and resources and the people along the way.
One of my great resources was yourself, Angela.
Oh.
Like, we had great communication back and forth. I always felt like I was appreciative from you. I just wasn't another number.
You weren't.
I was a person that had a great deal put onto me, and you always knew what to say to me.
That's
Keep
amazing.
me comfort with it all.
I'm really happy to hear it.
Yes, thank you.
I'm smiling the biggest. Everyone in the room knows I'm smiling the biggest right now. Yeah.
And I also think, like, for yourself, it was a really big help, the fact that Chris signed off on me being his third-party communicator with yourself.
Yes.
And you never put any pressure on Chris needing to speak to you.
I guess how I do my work is I meet people where they are, and for me, it's the person behind the policy. You know, yes, we have our policies and we have our legislation that guide the work, but you know, as case manager, I'm there for the person who's had the injury, and I want to make sure that you know how policy is applied is what's working best for them. I know initially, even when I got the claim, I couldn't call because the phone ringing was a trigger. And so we had to correspond via email. Now, typically we don't, right? But I knew I wasn't going to get to talk to you any other way. And I didn't want to be that trigger. And I didn't want to be that sense of insecurity, I suppose, right? I wanted to be there as a support for you and meet you where you were. And even talking to Heather, you know, like I would email Heather sometimes and say, how's Chris doing? Because I didn't want you to just get that email from me all out of the blue one day and just say, okay, oh gosh, like here we are, I'm kind of flared up with my anxiety, or now I'm going to be having a bad day because what does she want now type thing, you know? So I'm really happy to hear that I was there in that positive way for you guys. That's incredible, actually. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Another support would be my wife. She's always been there next to me by my side the entire time, through thick and thin of it all. She was my rock through my very, very bad days and my very good days. My parents, they were there for me. A lot of ears more so than anything, just to help me through. Yeah. Some of my treatments was with my therapist, was Aaron. He helped me through a lot and dealt with a lot. He put me through, the first stage was writing my situations down. Write them down, keep them, throw them out, do whatever you want to do with them.
Right.
Write them down again. And then I don't know how many times I've written them down, burned them, threw them in the garbage, tore them up. But in the beginning of it, I wrote all my situations that happened, and I laid them on my bedside. And they were there
Weeks.
Wow.
And that was one of the things he said, how come you haven't done anything with them yet? They're still part of me, essentially. And eventually I was able to write them down, throw them in the garbage, as I said, write them down again. I was getting to the point I was starting to forget some of the scenarios and situations, which was, well, not necessarily forget, but come to terms with it and actually be like, this is what it is. It's going to be more of a memory than a reoccurring nightmare.
Wow.
The minor details became
Yeah.
less important to you.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and he also helped me with exposure therapy, as most of my PTSD comes from hospital settings. So I had a lot of trouble, a lot of issues going into my family doctor, even giving blood. I'd go to the spot and I'd look through the window to see if there was any line up. If there wasn't, I'll dart in, give my information, and come right back out again. Like I I could smell things, I could see things. People are like, what do you mean you can smell things? It's just one of those senses that really kept with me, like the cleaning, the medicines and things like that. Even just the saline I could smell, and it was really bringing me back a lot of the reoccurring memories. Yeah, so we just sat in the front benches outside of the Health Science Centre, and eventually we sat there for 2 or 3 sessions, and then we went into the main lobby for 2 or 3 sessions. We did our whole 1-hour sessions there, and then we slowly went into Tim Hortons, went into the cafeteria, and by then we went into the emerge room, which was the big deal right there then.
Yeah, of course.
We just sat there and went through my how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you mentally and stress. And before I knew, by the time it was all said and done, we were up walking on the floors. My biggest trigger was the phone, hearing the phone, that specific ring that the hospitals use.
Yeah.
I always felt like they were calling, asking for me.
Yeah.
We need you, we need your help, we need to go do this. This is the call that came in. But by then it was just another phone call. So he was really, really helping me out through all of that.
So, I mean, I guess, and you described a lot of the methods, I guess, that have kind of get you to this point, but at what point in the claim do you consider to be, say, the turning point?
One of the turning points really was the right therapist, the right fit for me.
Great.
Once I saw my doctor, I saw him on a Wednesday, and by Friday I was seeing someone. He tried to go to what's happening in my mind and in my body more so than actually seeing what I went through. So he wasn't really the right fit for me.
Right.
So eventually, about, 3-4 months after, that's when I went to is Dr. Cleely and Associates, and that's where Aaron is too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I met with Aaron, and from there on it was one-on-one.
It was a big shift in how you've
Yeah.
seen therapy.
Yeah.
Before it was more of a, well, I have to, maybe it'll help. But once you started seeing Aaron and started working with Aaron, you really saw the value of how it was helping you, and that this was how you were going to get through it.
It wasn't just go and see my therapist, talk and just specifically talk about my PTSD. It was kind of just 2 people sitting, having a chat.
Making that
Yeah.
connection.
Making that connection with me one-on-one. Hey, Chris, how's it going? How was your week?
Having the rapport.
Yeah, just how's Heather? How's whatever?
Yeah.
It wasn't, all right, we're going to talk about this today and see how you feel afterwards. Yeah,
Right.
it was, oh, what video game are you playing now? Or I'm playing with this game now. What level are you at? It was kind of like a back and forth, just 2 people sitting and talking.
It's a friendship.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm so happy you were able to have that relationship with him.
Yes, it was very good, I must say. It was really a really good fit.
I remember working and talking to Aaron about, your progress, and we were talking about the exposure therapy and your progression through everything and how well you were doing.
Yes.
And then I kind of explained to him the labor market reentry process as being the next step that I wanted for you, but I wanted to make sure that you were ready for that. And so we started with the screening.
Yes.
And he was on board with that, and we needed to make sure that both of you were on board with that, and kind of getting ready to look towards the next step and
Yes.
and focus on what was coming for you
The next chapter.
next. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the screening was the part for me that was kind of giving you that hope and giving you that reassurance of your value and your previous experiences and your previous education and
Yes.
everything that you could apply to the workforce again. So how did that's how I felt, but how did you feel when I told you we were going to be going into this labor market reentry process?
Well, that was actually my other turning point of when everything was coming to reality with me. I remember Aaron brought it up in one of our sessions. He said, you were speaking and back and forth and speaking about going back to school or back to work and what my thoughts were. And I can remember I just got chills. I was like, I don't really think I'm ready for that. But and then we kind of got into it like, well, when do you think you're going to be ready? And, you know, this might be a good thing for you. This might actually help you. So I kind of just put it on the back burner at that time. And as we progressed through, he kept asking me, have you thought about it? You know, what are some of the spots you be wanting to look at, or are you willing to go back to work? So just thinking about that, and then I just said, yeah, I think I'm like ready towards to go back to school, because I don't think there was really much work that was really yelling out to me saying,
Right.
come do this or come do that.
Right.
So then when I did the screening, the gentleman, I think it was Wade, I think that's what his name was.
Wade Pryor.
Yes, Wade Pryor, yeah. We did all the testing, and he looked through all my backgrounds, and that's when he actually told me about supply chain logistics. I have a lot of like warehousing background, and I did work in stores with another company here in St. John, so that kind of piqued my interest. And when he told me about it that day, that afternoon, I actually went to Eastern Academy and got the information about it. And I waited for the other part of the screening again, and that's when I applied, right there on the spot.
It's amazing.
Yeah, got the ball rolling for it.
As a case manager, approving, you know, retraining programs for injured workers it's a big decision to make, but it's an incredible decision to make,
Yes, it
right?
is,
Because
yeah.
you're helping with that next chapter. And I'm so happy that you got to that point. But I'll never forget the phone call that I got when, because originally when we started working together, you couldn't call me. You know,
No.
I knew you were there in the background of the phone call, but it was myself and Heather that were chatting.
Yes,
And then
speakerphone.
Exactly, speakerphone. And then every now and then you would I'd say, Chris, how you doing? I'm okay, I'm here, right? And it was very, you know, so we kind of had that relationship. We had the relationship through Heather, of course.
Yes.
And now, like, you call me and you're like, hey, Angela, what's up? How are you? I'm like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, like, you're a different person.
Yeah.
And that day that you called me and you said that I have a job, oh my goodness, like, and you weren't even finished the program. Like, we still had time left.
I still had about 2 or 3 days left to my work term, and they hired me 3-4 days beforehand.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never forget it. I just,
Yes.
because I knew we were kind of getting to the end stage of the claim, because retraining was wrapping and everything. And so when you
Yes.
called, I had no idea what was going on. You were finishing up the work term. And so I didn't know what it was going to be about. And you're like, oh, I got a job. It was like, wow. Like, that phone call, I'll
Yeah.
never forget it.
To go from seeing a therapist 3 times a week to once a month to getting a job back into the workforce over the past 5-6 years has been a great ordeal, don't get me wrong, but rewarding.
Yeah, of course.
A
Yeah,
journey.
a very long but
very-
successful
yeah.
journey. Yeah,
And it's a career.
it is.
What's the one thing you'd like people to know about your experience with having a mental health injury?
Don't lose sight of who you are. Always keep that in you. Don't be ashamed about getting help. That was my main thing. Once I knew there was something wrong, I sought help right away. I wasn't ashamed of it. I knew there was something wrong. I knew deep down, mentally, physically, and I wasn't ashamed of it.
There is no health without your mental health.
Exactly.
And we need to start thinking about mental health the same way that we think about physical health.
Oh, yes.
We would go to the doctor if we had a physical health complaint
Yeah.
very quickly, and we would talk about our physical health. And we need to get to that point with our mental health.
But I think a big part of it too is that fighting for yourself when you have a mental health injury, because a lot of times your body physically reacts.
Yes,
And the
good
first
point.
doctor you saw wanted to explain away the physical symptoms the easiest way possible and didn't even consider the mental side of it.
Yeah.
And it was the second doctor who you said, this is what's happening. And they were finally like, this is not physical, this is mental.
Is there any advice that you'd like to give someone who's had a workplace injury?
Workers are not the enemy. There's a lot of stigmatism around workers being, they're just there to get you back to work. Not in my case. Really, like, I have a lot of people, oh, you got to get away from workers right away and get away from them and things like that. But no, they helped me. You guys really, truly helped me.
It wasn't something you expected from Workplace NL, obviously.
No. I mean, like, every time that you emailed me or the previous case manager emailed me, it was almost like, oh, what do they need now? Because that was always what the impression you got from everybody else.
Right.
But it wasn't so much of needing something from me, it was more checking in.
Yeah.
Right? So don't be afraid when you get the communication, because it's not necessarily them saying there's something wrong. It's just them wanting to know how you're doing and do you need anything? Can we help anymore? It's not a bad thing.
Right. Yeah. And I think thinking back on it now, I think most of my emails, that was the subject, checking in.
Yes, yeah.
It's just, and that's all I was doing, you know, and just making sure, again, like Heather, you said, like, that you guys both had the support that you needed from us. If there was anything else you needed with regard to treatments or medications or anything, you know, if it was just, again, checking in and making sure that you knew that we were here for you.
Yeah. And
that
that's
I
what
was
you
here
guys
for
were.
you.
You guys were here for me. It wasn't you guys, I didn't feel not once that you guys were against me or like rushing me, trying to get me back to work ASAP, or it was just, how's it going? We're here if you need us. Let us know if there's anything. And you were always there.
Are there any words that you would use to describe yourself at the beginning of the claim? And on the other side of that, are there any words that you would use to describe yourself now?
Beginning of my claim, I remember getting the first phone call from my other case manager, and I was frightened to death, scared, didn't know what to expect. And I just remember saying, you know, I'm really scared, I don't know what to do, I just feel like quitting. And she was just, no, don't need to do that, we're here to help you, we're gonna get you through this. I just felt a lot of withdrawn emotionally, physically, and you guys just helped me through a lot of it. Right now, I have my self-confidence back. I honestly do. Like, I've been through a lot. It's my journey. It's my story. But I feel like my old self again. Yeah. I have stories to tell. If anyone ever wanted to hear them, yes, I have no problem talking about them. But, like, my confidence is back.
They don't define you anymore.
Yeah. I don't want to be defined as the person with PTSD. Oh, he's the guy that has PTSD, or he's the guy that has anxiety or depression. I'm Chris. You want to know my story? I have no issue telling it.
I'm so happy to be a part of that journey and a part of that story, because it's a really special one.
It is.
It's very special.
I was always told that there's not too many success stories that come out of a lot of mental health, and not just from workers, but like through school, through my doctors, my medical team. They can't get over how much success I've gone through and have gotten. They said you're one of the few that actually progressed through and got to the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you had a good team, but you're the one that put the work in.
Yes.
It is you.
It's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but like, there's a lot of work.
And that's just it. You were willing to put the work in.
Yes.
You had the motivation and
Yeah.
the
And
end
you
goal.
had that support system behind you.
Yes.
And the cheerleaders cheering you on, which makes a big difference as well.
I always say to myself, yes, this was the journey and I went through what I went through. I'm glad I got the help, and I'm glad I didn't resort to the other side of it. I'm glad I felt I needed the help and I went and got it. Yeah, I didn't self-medicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be scary. And I know even those, you know, the first few conversations that the three of us had, it was scary for me because I didn't know if having that little check-in was going to be a trigger.
Yes.
You know? But again, like I think now to the times you just call me up and we can correspond back and forth,
Yeah.
you know, via email, like, and it's just, it's easy, and it's just, I'm so proud of you. I can't say it enough.
From phone calls and like specific times in the night, I can just recall some of my scenarios or situations, and even that used to trigger me. Seeing the time, phone calls. Every time my phone rang, my anxiety would go up, thinking it's the clinic calling me to need me for something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it could have been any point in time in the evening, night, overnight, and I'd be called out. And I never knew what was going to happen or what I was walking into.
Always prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, we've worked together through a lot of this, even just this conversation today, I feel like I know so much more now than I didn't before. And I'm touched in different ways that I haven't been, you know, even just being here with you. So it's really special.
Thank you. Thank you for being there.
And thank you for joining us today to share your powerful story.
Not a problem.
It certainly has affected me. And this is my first time meeting you and Heather.
Yes.
And I can just see the impact that Angela and everybody had on your life to get you from not having that self-confidence to being that confident person that I'm talking to today. It's hard to believe that you were there.
Dark
Just
places.
to see you right now, you know, you're such a bright light.
Yes.
And so is Heather. So I just thank you so much for the two of you for being here today.
Thank you for joining us today. Transcripts are available to use in your workplace to increase workers' knowledge in various occupational health and safety topics. Visit workplacenl.ca for more information on the services we provide to workplaces. Feel free to share the signal on social media to improve workplace health and safety everywhere. Thank you and have a safe and healthy day.